do under pressure? Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Hey. Ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era. I wake up early, feeling rich like I'm Kesha. I get to the paper, boy. Extra, extra. Fuck with me, you know that I got it. Come with me, let's take a trip to the islands. We up on the jet, we'll do more than just fly on it. Stand on that hill, you gon' die on it. Boom, boom. Baby, I'm not one of them, you should try on it. Miss me with all that, I'm on it and next. Fuck this up, I send you back to your ex. But good luck with that, this is big as it gets. Hey, let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. Give them a name to remember. Hey, let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. A moment can live on forever. Yeah. Oh shit, they don't let me shoot a whole clip. Firepower in this coalition. We just turned the field into a demolition. It was desolate, but I had premonition. I was training for war every exhibition, every extra mission, every enemy listening. Get off my dick, I got bad intentions. Make it right every wrong, and I'm back with a vengeance. I show you the ropes. Peace in my town, I can show you the coast. Up in the shots if they wanted to.
Okay, round number 2. I had a little bit of an issue with my last Thieaudio HYPE10 video. Wasn't too happy with it anyway, so I'm glad I got a chance to redo it, but I have 40 minutes of me that I could dub over lip syncing. I was actually thinking about doing that, but I'll spare you that. Anyway, on this video, I'm much better looking than I was 2 days ago. Now, it's a bit weird that I did send them off to another member of the Canucks Audio Holics, so if I need something like prop, you know, so I'll just hold up something else and move on. Alright, so let's start off with the Thieaudio HYPE10, and let's get a little background into it. Interesting. I was just reading about some hoopla, and I like doing that, like the marketing shpick. You know, some of the things that stood out, and I like to call them out, right? So first of all, I will tell you, a bit disappointed in the name. So I was all geared up and my video to call it the HYPE10 because I thought it meant high performance, but it actually means hybrid performance. So blew my HIPPY acronym all to shit, so thank you for that. So HYPE stands for high performance. All right, let's get into this bad boy. So introducing impact. Here we go again. Monk, you're gonna bitch about the subwoofers. Yes, I am. First of all, gotta get these companies to stop calling them isobaric. They are not isobaric. They're two 10mm dynamic drivers firing against each other and out through a tube, and it creates deconstructive interference with the two sound waves, even though the air is being forced through this little tube. It's a terrible design. If it was done isobarically, truly isobarically, where the two woofers are working as one, there could be a isobaric dance there, but the two in this case, just like the Penon and a few others now call it, and they're doing this. And they're trying to force it through the tube. What they call it? Impact 2, Impact Squared. This is Thieaudio's latest technological innovation to change the personalized audio industry. Jesus. Impact 2 is a new subwoofer solution consisting of 2mm composite diaphragm drivers arranged in an isobaric design. And if it was a new technology, sure, go for it. But if it was a true isobaric, they could have called it like a 30-year, 50-year technology that they're using because it works. Just to go on a little bit about the isobarics, why I'm putting a little bit of emphasis on that is an educational thing, right? If you have two woofers that are working together, it does a bunch of things. it lowers the impedance. It's easier to drive. It's easier on the drivers. Less noise, less distortion. There's a whole bunch of reasons why you would do two drivers isobarically. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why you would not do it this way. The big one for me is sound. So I also got a chance right after I wrote this HYPE10 first time, and then I got a chance to listen to the MONARCH Mark III with, again, this subwoofer system they introduced. But in the HYPE10, this works. Only because they've assisted it with balanced armatures. Now, I've heard a lot of talk about the HYPE4 and HYPE10 sounding tonally very similar, but I would question that. Just like I question where it says the addition of another 10 millimeter subwoofer significantly enhances the power and texture of the bass, while our in-house isobaric chamber design keeps frequency and pressure constant. One part of that is true. The next line they use is, this means you can enjoy better quality bass without sacrificing tonal integrity. No, I don't think so. I think in the HYPE10, the bass is wonderful. One of the standout features. But that's not because of the two drivers themselves are creating a really nice low subwoofer-ish output. The Sonyan balanced armatures BAs that are assisting are doing all of the heavy lifting when it comes to tonality, when it comes to texture. It does a better job. Would it have been better if they used a different subwoofer design system? Yeah, I think so. For instance, comment the other day, somebody was asking HYPE10 bass, what is that versus the Zen's Mangered Up? And I will tell you that I prefer the Zen's Mangered Up bass miles above this bass, because that is textured and that actually adds nice mid bass from the dynamic driver, where this one you are getting the low output from the 210s, but the assistance of the balanced armatures. And in the HYPE4, which I haven't heard, which I hopefully get a chance, but if it sounds anything like the MONARCH Mark III, it's not that impressive for texture and bass output. So HYPE10 works because of the balanced armatures, and blah 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 blah. So I mean, in the other part of this IM is they're not using ESTs in the HYPE10 like the MONARCH Mark III. They're actually using the new Knoll Super Tweeter, the 31736 drivers. They call them the Ultra Tweeters. So the addition of the Sonyan BA mids and the Sonyan 28 UAP bass drivers is a really good choice for this IM. Now, as I said before, I'm a really big fan of Sonyan for the BA mids, and I'm a big fan of the Knolls for tweeters, so they did great in this IM. Now, what's kind of interesting is that my thought process changed a little bit after reviewing this and then getting the MONARCH Mark III. And I did say in my original one that I thought that the MONARCH Mark III was the clear upgrade for $100 more. This one's $899. MONARCH Mark III's $100. And I'll clarify that in the end when I do an A/B comparison for sound. How's that? I can see you're agreeing with me. That's perfect. I love it. Let's continue on, shall we? Let's talk about some of the in my journey that I came to realize. So And I'll say a couple points that I think are very, very important. So never have I listened to another IM that scaled as like this one. This H10 is needy. So what I mean by that, on low volumes, it sounds very congested. You don't get very many lows, and you don't get very many highs. It's very mid-centric and kind of muddy. As you turn up the volume dial, it starts to come alive. And as you really dial it, then it got too intense for me. And that was my overall problem, I think. No, that's wrong wording. It's not a problem. I don't have problems. I have solutions. But that was one of my observations. The 3D stage. It is nice. It's all in your space. Sometimes it even sounded behind my ears. It's kind of, and that also has to do with your ear shape and your ear tips and all that happy jazz. Layering depth, excellent. Not massively wide, but it was a nice presentation in the stage. Certainly not the best that I've heard, but it was definitely above average. Now, when I started listening to this, I fired it up on my most resolving source, which I have two, which would have been the Ibasso DX90, the old school boy, and ESS in this one as well, into the XD05 Pro with the Sparkos Labs op amps. So an ESS deck. I really liked it, and then as soon as I started listening, it's like, whoa, this is a pretty intense IM. And my only other experience with Thieaudio has been my Oracle, which I am smitten with. So I had this on listening to this, and then I switched over, and this was with the stock cable, okay? It's an SPC cable. And when I switched with the stock cable with the Gishelli Labs J2 and A90D, I noticed it definitely getting thicker into the lower mids on the bottom, and there was some mid-bass bleed, and that came even more noticeable when I switched over to the Shanling M8 DAP. Now, we had some conversation within Canucks Audioholics, and we talked about that and kind of other guys' impressions so far. And cable came up, and so I said, okay, let's try this. So I ditched the stock cable. I went over to a nice HCK, a Gray Dragon SPC cable, and now on the warmer sources, it not only had the details, but it took away the muddiness in the bottom end. So not a big fan of the stock cable. And in the end, I am just switching to the warmest of sources, and it was a wonderful replay. And it took down some of the intenseness that I experienced with the HYPE10. This set, and I'll talk about the three, and I really came to that conclusion after listening to the Monarch Mark III. So for me, I have three Thieaudios, whatever I just said, Thieaudio, IMs. So the Oracle, and then the HYPE10, and then the Monarch Mark III that I listened to here. I had for about a week and doing the AB. And on the three, I would say the Oracle on a musicality scale, right, does the 60% musicality, 40% technicalities. And then on the Monarch Mark III, I think it's a very even 50-50 split. It's a great balance between the musicality and the technical details. Now, the HYPE10, I think, does a 40-60. 40% musicality, 60% technicalities. So it really leans more on the technical side than it does on the musicality side, if that makes sense to you. Okay. And my preferences, if you haven't watched any of my videos before, I lean on the neutral to bassy side. It has to, what my preferences are, like the Zen's mangered up. Bassy, lots of mid bass in there without too much bass bloat, where it mucks up, it adds enough to add male vocals, but not too much to screw up female vocals. I like my treble, but I don't like it bright and sibilant. I like a gentler pinna gain, and even in the flat mids, which is nice. Now, so songs like Keith Don't Go from Nils Lofgren live. It's a phenomenal recording, first of all. And on this recording, there is clearly two mics. So you got the mic on the guitar and his mic that he's singing. And I'm listening to technical details. I'm listening to how accurate it is. Timbre and tonality. And as I go more and more into reviews, I'm putting more weight, for me, into that. So here I thought that the HYPE10 was very organic. It was smooth, it was musical, and it definitely needed the juice to scale up correctly. You know, the Gishelli E2 amp, 2 watts. The XD05, 2 watts. The A90D downstairs is 10 watts. So I got lots of power. Even on my DAPs, the Ibasso DX170 and the Shanling M8, and even the Ibasso DX90 had enough juice to get these going. So you don't need crazy, but I certainly wouldn't run the HYPE10 on a phone or a low power dongle. You're not going to do it any favors at all. Next track, kind of Enter Sandman, Alyssa Cara. The bass and the sub bass is deep, but it's not that impactful. It's kind of missing that mid bass hit for proper kicks and drums, but vocals are definitely spot on, natural and very clean. So even though it's got the two Sonyan BAs for helping out with the bass, I didn't think it was still that impactful playing this kind of rock music. Passion by Gypsy Kings. Guitars have great tonality, again, really good. The weight of the strings sounded very good, but not pitch perfect. So I'm getting a pretty good sense of, as I'm listening to my test tracks and these songs that I listen to over and over and over again on every IM, of how well does the IM or the gear that I'm listening to present in a way that I think is what it should sound like, and what a live recording or what the studio would have put in without coloration. So I didn't think it sounded pitch perfect for the guitars. So Rankin, Dead Can Dance, this is an interesting one. So I listened to this particular track because I want to listen to its stage. Now, I know that this is recorded in a fairly large studio, and you have the studio audience listening in as well and adding their, right? And not a big concert hall. And in other sets, some sets can pick this up. The HYPE10 did it actually quite well. So you got a really good sense of its space, and that bodes well to the resolution, the ability of an IM to really pick up the nuances like that. And the HYPE10 does a pretty fantastic job. All my friends are here, Joe Satriani. So at the minute 45 mark, there is an ascending A major. HYPE10 didn't do it very well. You couldn't really pick out the ascending notes in his guitar riffs. And again, it was missing that mid-bass kick of the drums that I know that should be there. So, you know, it didn't have the best replay. Solo por ti, Amiwana from the Gypsy Kings. Now, I know that this track very well, and there's, I'm going to have to find out what stupid instrument it is, but you can hear on the right side, down low, and then I think he switches hands, or I have heard that in my Twilight, where I don't know what it is, something. And he switches hands, and you can hear it on the left side and higher. And then later in the track, it switches back to the right side. And in some IMs, you can get a really good, clear definition of that instrument. And with the HYPE10, I couldn't really pick it out. Though this IM is very resolving in certain ways, it for layering and depth, it didn't do that for me, not clearly defined. So, In Between Two Lungs, Florence and the Machine. It's a wonderful playback, great on female vocals, colored in a nice way. And I'm not a massive fan of super neutrality. Like, I mean, I don't want that. I want some coloration in there. And the HYPE10 definitely favors female vocals over male vocals, in my opinion. Like this next song, Songbird by Fleetwood Mac. The pianos were nice. The vocals were nice. But switching out to the Twilight and for tonality and timbre, and then switching also to the Pen-on Quattro for the mids, you can clearly hear that it's missing some of the weight, and the tonality of the vocals are not quite right. So you don't notice it if you're not critically listening to it. If you're just sitting back, kicking back on a warm source, the HYPE10 will make you happy. But if you're sitting there and you're trying to critically listen to it, understand this IM in depth, and that's what I'm trying to help you, is explain how the HYPE10 comes across tonality wise, right? So it might not be a big different deal for some people. They are okay with that. It's like it doesn't have to sound perfectly correct. But listening to other IMs as a comparison, you go, yeah, no, that vocals isn't quite right. The pitch of her voice and the sound of that drum and that guitar doesn't sound like it should, or at least it does on better sets that do that better. I shouldn't say better sets, but sets that do that better. Okay, My Immortal from Evanescence. When I listened to the Pen-on Impact, I was very moved emotionally for that playback and that song, and then I listened to it on this one deliberately, and I wanted to see if it could move me. It was underwhelming. I'm going to leave it at that. Again, there's that probably difference between a musical set and a more of a technical set, where, you know, more musical set you can engage with, you can get in touch with it. It moves you in an emotional way, and that really, isn't that music, right? Where I found the H10 didn't do that for me. Now, obviously, that's a $2,500 IM, but I've had cheaper that still did it for me, and the H10 did not. So, now, to talk about more about how this sounded and versus a Monarch Mark III, because I think the two are very they're $100 difference, right? Where the Monarch Mark III doesn't use the BAs for the Sonyon BAs for the adding in for the mid bass, where the HYPE10 did. And the Monarch Mark III uses EST, where the HYPE10 uses the super tweeters, and it's tuned. And I'll pull up a graph very similarly, but on paper, but they don't sound like that. There is more energy in the HYPE10. You can clearly hear that. What you can't hear is the added bottom end texture that it adds. So let's get into some tracks and understand a bit more. So first of all, listening to Bode Electric from Boris Blank, guy from Yellow. Monarch Mark III sounds a tad warmer, smoother, more coherent between the drivers, and spatial placement was better. Where the H10 sounded punchier, more treble energy, more 3D effects in this mix. So playing like a trippy EDM song, H10 kills it over the Monarch Mark III. Slow Grenade by Ellie Goulding. Monarch Mark III sounds better with the vocals, more natural, less forward on this track. Again, that's the real big difference between the H10. Again, there's that Monarch Mark III 50-50 technicality, musicality, 40-60 H10. So vocals will sound smoother, tad warmer, not as forward with the Monarch Mark III versus the H10. H10 it presents more mid-forward, so you get more of the vocals up front, and you got more of the bass, and you got more of the highs. So it'd be more of a V shape, but on paper, again, they look very similar. So Pancake, Young Sun, H10 again, snappier on bass. Really like the bass of the H10. Even though I bitch about how they did the bass, it comes across very nicely. So vocals are a hair better on tonality wise on the Monarch Mark III. Instrumental has better weight, and it's less forward again in the mid. So if you're listening to this track, the Monarch Mark III clearly has it sounds more tonally correct than the H10 does. And that was a really good track to pick that out easily. Because the H10 has more energy up top, it just makes it less warm. But the guitars on this track really pop out. They pop out detail-wise, but not the same correcting sound. I'm probably doing a shitty job of explaining that. I'm trying, guys. Beautiful War by Kings of Leon. H10 has such a nice bottom end. It really does. More resolving with the extra energy again up top, where the Monarch Mark III again has better timbre, has better correct tonality. Wake Me Up When September Ends, Vitamin String Quartet. Monarch Mark III strings sound too far back in the mix, and cello has me wishing for more low end weight, the information there. Or the H10 has more energy up top, but again, not correct. Strings don't sound as correct as they did. They both didn't play that track well. Wrecking Ball, Miley Cyrus, just to go back for a second. When I say they didn't play it well, the H10 played it with the energy but not the tonality, and the Monarch Mark III played it with the better tonality but not the correct energy and the weight into the strings. So if there was a happy medium between the two, it would have been perfect, but there wasn't. So, Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus. The H10 sounds really clean, bright, nice top end. So again, really for female vocals, extra energy up top, H10 all the way. Monarch Mark III again on this track. Vocals, instruments sound more natural and more tonally sound better. H10 sounds more natural. Sorry. H10. Oh my God, what's the matter? Edit this shit out, bunk. H10 sounds more nasally and pushed out in the vocals, and this really comes to play when you go beyond medium volumes and you start to push the volume ups, and that's where it really, like on high volumes, right? Where on medium volumes, you don't get that, but as soon as you dial it up, that's where the H10 kind of got nasally, and it sounds like the vocals are getting shoved at you, pushed out. Do It by Ray Morris. H10 gets almost a bit shouty again when pushed at vocals. So I'm using these two tracks to get a real good sense of this IM, and if I had the H10, it's a mid-volume set. Don't listen at low volumes. Don't try to really crank it up, because it will do weird things when you do that. Where the Monarch Mark III and this track was a big difference between how realistic do vocals sound between the two sets. And on the Monarch Mark III, they sounded correct, or more correct than the H10. And the H10 didn't. The vocals are off. And because they're pushed forward in the mix, it drowns out the instrumental with the forward mids on the H10. But the bass was standout. So, Padam Padam by Edith Piaf. Listening for pure musicality. Monarch Mark III. Killed it. Overall, I think the H10 gives a bigger sense of space and stage. That was one of the big differences between the Monarch Mark III and the H10, where the H10 really killed it for presenting in a more exciting stage, right? Porcelain by Moby. The H10 here, I was listening for bass. Great thump, great for trip-hop. It really was a great presentation for that. Where the Monarch Mark III was more chilled, the top end, it felt rolled off a bit versus the H10, and out of that kind of music, I like the energy of the H10. So that was kind of how I heard the Thieaudio. I still want to call it the HYPPY 10. Okay, all serious and like shit. Conclusion. Who would overall, let's talk about, and I'm going to start doing this and maybe I'll pull it up in the vid, where I'm going to start grading them, right? And I'll do it out of 1 of a 10. How's that? So in the bass on this one, I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. It's still missing some stuff. It had nice output. 8 out of 10. It's just missing some of the. There's a disconnect between the subs and the Sonyan BAs. They're not cohesive enough to blend in nicely to give very good bass. It's quantity of bass, and it's pretty good bass, but it's an 8 out of 10. The mids, being more forward, are pretty good. I mean, but I'm gonna give it a 7. Yeah. Treble, probably one of the standouts on this track. I give it an 8.5 out of 10. I think it was really well done. Those Noel super tweeters really come to life when there's information up there, and they'd extend way up there, so beyond what I can hear, that's for sure. Stage is slightly above average, so I'm gonna give it a 6.5 out of 10. Timbre and tonality, 5 out of 10. And why I say that is, well, there's many sets that sound more correct to my ears than the HYPE10 did for its timbre and tonality. Easy to pick up when you have other sets that sound more correct to you, and it did to me, right? Another observation, and Kevin's said kind of the same thing. We were talking about the same thing, different ways. When you're listening to this set, did we both enjoy this set, first of all? Yes, absolutely, very much. When you're not trying to listen to it, and you have a warm source, and you can sit back and you can chill to the HYPE10, very cool. But every few songs, there will be something that comes on, unless you were listening to the same album or whatever, right? But if you're cycling through different tracks on your playlist or whatever, and along comes a song, and there's a lot of detail in there, especially in the high end, your brain goes from chilling to like, because it pulls you out of the zone. It pulls you out of the musicality zone, that, and this 60% technicality side kick in, and it washes out the 40% musicality, and then you find yourself, brain is focusing on the spatial stuff that's going on, right? And the information and details that you're getting, your brain is receiving from the IM doing the playback. And then another song come in, you can sit back and chill again, and it'll happen again and over. That's a technical set side more than the musicality side, right? If you wanted the full just sit back and chill, and that's not going to happen, then the MONARCH Mark III is for you. Who should buy this? Well, again, I was giving this the mindful thought, and I think somebody who prioritizes more of the technical side than the musical side of an IM. You're not looking for a super dark and warm and lush mids. You're good to go with more of a vocal forward, mid forward presentation, more V-shaped, more bass in the bottom end, more treble in the top end. Somebody who doesn't want to still sacrifice bass output. And again, somebody who's probably not trying to listen to this critically like a studio monitor. This would be the very much unstudio monitor like I am ever. If that's what you're looking for, you will certainly enjoy this IM. For what it does and how it does it, it's up there. For my personal tastes, and this was weird, after I did the MONARCH Mark III, I was almost flip-flopping of which one, because in my first video I said clearly I would pick the MONARCH Mark III over the two. If I'd spend the $100 more. And then I thought to myself, would I? Which one would I enjoy more? And still my answer to myself was the MONARCH Mark III, though, and I'll do another video about that one as well, in depth. My personal taste, I wouldn't buy either for me. The HYPE10 is too much on the technical side. It reminds me of a Let's Shure EJ07, where you can't complain about that IM at all. But you can complain about how it's, again, not a musical IM. It's a very detailed technical set. And I don't gravitate to that as much. And then that's personal choice. But if you're looking for that, then you will love the HYPE10. But I would gravitate more towards the Thieaudio MONARCH Mark III. But that being said, I still gravitate even more to the Oracle. I love that sound versus at half its price of the MONARCH Mark III. And, it's 60% of or 70%. I don't know what the ratio is. I'm not doing math. I'm just having fun talking to you of the HYPE10. Anyway, enough. Blah, blah, blah. That's it for me on this one. I hope I've conveyed as much as I blabbered to tell you how I heard the Thieaudio HYPE10, and I thank the Canucks Audioholics review group for, again, buying this personal purchase and sharing it with the group. So, thank you. You know who you are. You're a lovely man. I don't care what your friends say.
Who should buy the MONARCH Mark